On the one hand, management talking about plant closures, job cuts. On the other hand, the union talking about more money for Volkswagen workers. They're really diametrically opposed at this stage, the different positions. What's really unique here, if we look at the different sides negotiating, so on one hand the management, on the other hand the employees, is the power that employees wield within Volkswagen.
Volkswagen and union reps started crunch talks today, trying to figure out a way forward after the German auto titan announced drastic cost-cutting plans. Thousands staged a protest outside the talks, and unions are vowing bitter resistance. To find out the mood on the ground at the negotiations, we turn now to our DW business correspondent, Marie Sina, who's on site in Hanover. Marie, lots of scary headlines being thrown around, factory closures, layoffs. What's being negotiated today?
Well, first of all, the negotiations kicked off right behind me, behind this door, just about an hour ago. And the negotiations are between Volkswagen and IG Metall, the union representing Volkswagen workers. And what's being negotiated is nothing short of the job future of 120,000 Volkswagen workers here in Germany. So these negotiations are taking place now, a month earlier than planned, and that's because 3 weeks ago Volkswagen canceled the job protection scheme that had been in place for 30 years and essentially put job closures and plant closures on the table. And now workers and the Volkswagen management are coming together to agree on what wages and job security will look like in the future, and whether or not they can agree on something will really determine how Volkswagen's workers in Germany will look towards the future.
And what's the mood on the ground right now?
So right before these talks kicked off, around 3,000 protesters showed up at the doors of this building. There was chanting, there was booing, there were a lot of posters. Some protesters actually left a poster here in front of the store that is kind of looks like a gravestone for the job protection agreement that Volkswagen had put in place in 1994, and that was nixed just 3 weeks ago. So a lot of upset protesters, upset people who came from all different factories of Volkswagen around the country, and we actually spoke to some of them. Have a listen.
At the moment, there is a certain insecurity. I think that I should be okay, but I'm here for my younger colleagues. They need to think about what's coming. Things will keep going initially, but it won't be like it used to be. Everything is different now at Volkswagen, including how we deal with management. We're annoyed that the wage guarantees have been cut. We are annoyed that they're saying that 7% is too much for the workers. That's wrong. We have brought productivity up. The miserable situation is not the workers' fault. Management has made many mistakes on product development. They were asleep at the wheel in the China market, and that's why we're super angry.
So we're hearing it here. Workers feel like management has been asleep at the wheel, and like it's the workers who will now have to feel the bitter consequences of mess-ups on the side of the management. That's according to the people we spoke to this morning.
Volkswagen, the company, is a big player here in Germany, and the group does represent 10 brands. How dramatic is the situation that the company finds itself in, that it says it needs these cuts?
It's a historic situation that the company finds itself in. So this is the first time in the company's 87-year history that it's put plant closures on the table. Even Volkswagen, to many, is synonymous with the economic might, the economic success of Germany. It was a key player in the economic miracle that took place in the German economy after the Second World War, and it was on a big expansion course for many years, buying up, for example, Bentley, Lamborghini, buying up different car brands around Europe. And now, instead of an expansion course, it's looking at plant closures. And the reasons for that are multifold. but to boil it down, essentially, one big problem is that Volkswagen's production is too expensive and that it's selling not enough cars at the same time. So it's spending too much money, not making enough money back. It's sold 500,000 less cars a year in Europe now than before the pandemic. So it's selling less cars in its home market in Europe as people have less money to spend. That's one big issue. High production costs in Germany, high energy costs, high labor costs. Another issue, and then the big issue that everybody's talking about, that's on everybody's minds right now, is China. China is the most important market of Volkswagen, and China is rapidly losing ground. There are electric vehicles that Volkswagen is trying to sell in China are not as popular as competitors, homegrown competitors in China like BYD, but also American competitors like Tesla are producing electric vehicles that are a lot more popular than Volkswagen. So this once very mighty brand is losing ground at home and abroad.
You're right outside the door where those negotiations are taking place. On the other side of the negotiating table, what are the worker demands and how realistic are they given the current situation?
Right, so the IG Metall, the workers' union representing Volkswagen workers, is demanding a 7% pay rise on the one hand, and on the other hand, it's demanding for Volkswagen to reinstitute this job protection program that had been in place for the last 30 years. So to summarize, it's asking for more money and job security. Now, that's actually a similar demand than other unions are making in the metal industry, for example, and in the electric industry. So in a different context, these demands aren't unrealistic whatsoever. But if we look at the statements coming from Volkswagen management, which is saying we're not making enough money, we're spending too much money, and Germany is no longer a competitive car manufacturing hub because it's become too expensive, then suddenly it becomes clear how different these views are. On the one hand, management talking about plant closures, job cuts. On the other hand, the union talking about more money for Volkswagen workers. They're really diametrically opposed at this stage, the different positions. And so the talks that are happening behind me are expected to continue happening until the end of the year. And the big question is whether those positions will be able to converge a little bit and come to an agreement.
And in terms of background, who are the leaders on both sides here and who are their chief negotiators?
So the chief negotiators on the one hand are Volkswagen management, and on the other side are the IG Metall representatives and Daniela Cavallo, the representative of the Workers' Council. And what's really unique here, if we look at the different sides negotiating, so on one hand the management, on the other hand the employees, is the power that employees wield within Volkswagen. Really the power that the union wields within this company is unparalleled compared to the rest of the world, really. So Volkswagen is known to have a very strong union, and the union actually holds half of the seats on the company's board. And together with politicians of the home state of Volkswagen, Lower Saxony, who are pro-employee because they're social democrats, they actually have a veto vote on the board of this company. So really the two sides here that are negotiating are really on eye level. And what IG Metall has said is that they expect a discussion here that will take place on eye level, and they feel like that's not what's been happening until now, because in their eyes they've been informed about these giant plans and these big plans that management has for potentially cutting jobs too late. So this will be an interesting time to potentially find more common ground and more eye-level discussion between the different parties negotiating.
And Volkswagen is just one company, but what does this negotiating round tell us about the whole industry in Germany right now?
Right, the car industry is Germany's most well-known industry, it's Germany's most important industry, and it's not just the car makers themselves that are really essential for Germany's economy, but it's also the providers of different parts, the companies that make tires, for example, that produce the rubber. It's really such a staple of the German economy, and it's not just Volkswagen that's struggling. If we look at BMW, Mercedes, and Volkswagen, all three of those have only used 2/3 of their factory capacity last year. So all of them are producing fewer cars. There's less demand for their cars, and all of them are struggling with higher production costs. So this problem really isn't unique to Volkswagen entirely. And really the big problem that applies to all German car makers overall is the fact that Germany's car industry has built its success on the combustion engine and on really perfecting the combustion engine. And these are companies that have a long tradition, that have hundreds of thousands of employees. And when the electric vehicle industry came around, German car companies really lacked the nimbleness and the innovative speed to rethink their concept and to jump onto that electric vehicle business quickly enough. And now they're lagging behind, while consumers, especially young consumers, but also consumers in China, like I mentioned, are looking more towards electric vehicles and less towards these big prestige-oriented combustion engine cars like a big Mercedes, like a big BMW. So Germany, the German car industry has to become more nimble, more innovative, and has to figure out how to make affordable and modern cars.
That's our DW Business correspondent Marie Sina, who's joined us on site in Hanover. Marie, thank you.